Hi, so I'm Kelly. Thank you so much for joining me to learn more about how to make your own magnolia fall wreath. So I'm just going to go over some of the supplies that we're starting with. So you can see here is our big bushel of fresh brown velvet magnolia leaves. We get these from Weston Farms. They're beautiful, and magnolia leaves will dry up nicely, so your wreath under certain circumstances, if you're keeping it covered, should last you a very long time. We have glue gun. We've got our wreath frame kit here. Scissors. This will just be good for the floral wire. You can use your pruners, but it might be nice just to have a regular pair of scissors on hand just so you don't dull your pruner. And then of course I have a pruner that'll be good for cutting the magnolia leaves. We have preserved ryegrass, some preserved spruce cones, and some cute little bunny tails that we thought this would help kind of soften up your wreath a little bit. So that's what we're going to start with. Okay, so the first step in all of this is really just prepping. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your bushel of magnolia leaves and you're just going to start to prune off the leaves. And any that you don't think look very good, just set those aside so that way you can just filter them out. And usually what I suggest doing is, I have a couple here that I cut already, but you can see I have about, I would say, a ½ inch of the stem. I try to get down all the way to pretty much the larger branch, so that when I attach it to the wreath, I have something to wrap the floral wire around. So just be aware of that when you do that. So I'll just show you here. This is actually one full branch. And so if I go ahead and clip, I'm clipping pretty much at the base of that branch. And so I have a nice, this one's even 3/4 long, which you do want that length because it's really gonna help you. So be sure to go ahead and do that first. Go ahead, clip all of these off. And what I did is I start to lay them out in sets of 3. So you can see they also have this beautiful brown velvet side, and it literally is like this nice soft velvet side, which is really cool. So set them out in groups of 3. So once you have all of your leaves cut, you're going to go ahead and start to bind them with the floral wire. You can see that I did that here. So I'll show you how to do that. All you're going to do is pick out the 3 leaves that you set aside. And also I want to mention, you can kind of see here a little bit. So the 2 leaves at the outer edge are slightly larger than the one at its center. So just to sort of even out the wreath, try to keep your leaf sizes very similar. And if you're finding like, oh, I'm worried I have some small leaves and I have a lot of large leaves, take one of the smaller leaves, kind of place it in the center, and when you start to stack it, it'll balance out. But try to keep, for the most part, the leaf sizes generally about the same, because you don't want one side of your wreath to look really heavy with large leaves and then the other side to look really small with smaller leaves. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and bind these 3 and just show you the technique. So go ahead and take some of your floral wire. You don't need that much. You can see like cutting like maybe 5 inches, 6 inches. And go ahead and grab your leaves. Lay them out how you wish. And I start by holding them so that in the format that I want them to spread, just fanned out. You're going to want them to fan out because once you start to lay it out, you want to cover up the wreath frame. And then start to wrap it around, just in a circle. Okay? And then once you get that nice and tight, you'll flip it on the back side, and then you're just gonna create, if you know, like the old twist ties from, a loaf of bread, all you're gonna do is a few twists on the back. Go ahead and trim it. Okay. And just gently push that down. And then you should have your little fan. So that's it in terms of setting up the magnolia leaves. Go ahead and do all of your magnolia leaves. I want to say you should have plenty out of the bundle. You'll probably have plenty of extra too, and hopefully that's for good reason. You can maybe do some other things with them, or if there's some damage, you at least have plenty to get it into your wreath. I want to say maybe at least prepare for about 15 to 20 of the bundles to go around your wreath. Also, I do want to mention that for me, I did not put anything on the back of my wreath. And part of the reason is I knew that no one would ever see it because it was just going on my front door. But if you want to cover up a little bit of the back for any reason, you could potentially get a piece of burlap, cut it to shape, and then wrap the sides up the edge and hot glue it. So once you have all of your magnolia leaves bundled up, what you can start to do is lay them out. That's actually the fun part. So what I did on my wreath is I did one fresh green side and then one brown velvet side. I alternated all the way around. And keep in mind, you're gonna wanna go in one direction. That's how I did this wreath. If you wanna play around and start at the bottom and do opposites, you're welcome to try that. But for this, I did just go ahead and do one direction. It's a little bit simpler that way. It has a nice flow. So that's what I did. So yeah, go ahead and you can start attaching them to the wreath frame. And to do that, you see these middle pieces of the wreath frame. This is where you're really going to attach, so that the fanned edges of the leaves, they'll just come out and they'll cover the other edges. So I'm going to go ahead and attach one of these on so that you can see that. And it'll help too once you get to some of the intersections, that it'll help so that the wire doesn't slip or anything like that too. Although, I mean, I've had pretty good success with attaching these without them slipping, so you should be good. Okay. So like I said, you're going to use the same technique that you did to bundle your leaves. Wrap it around a few times. Get it nice and tight in there. I did mine on the second to inside part of the frame, and now I'm getting ready to go ahead and do the twist tie so that it'll be on there. You're gonna have to flip it over, just be gentle. Okay. And then you can go ahead and wrap even that twist tie around. That'll help you to keep it in place a little bit nicer. With each one, so you can see how this is attached on here now, just go ahead and gently tug it in the direction you want, so that way the wire will help form, and then just, grip it at the bottom to make sure it's nice and sturdy. Fan it out if you need to a little bit more. So I'll go ahead and do the brown velvet side as well, just so you can see how these two look together. Oh, this is actually a very good point. So what you'll want to do is, I have this one on here. If you stack them in front of each other, it's going to make your life easier because you can see what you're doing and you're not trying to go behind the previous magnolia leaves that you put down. So that should help you out a lot. Go ahead and get some more wire. Something else to note here is that you could, if you desired to, if you felt like for some reason you weren't having as much success getting the floral wire to stay in place as you're placing the leaves on to the frame, you could always use your glue gun and put a little dab of glue at the back base of the stems where you have the floral wire, and that'll help it stay in place. If you intend on using the wreath frame again, then you might not want to do that. Make sure to get a few wraps in. More. Tightening it up, fanning out. Okay. Alrighty. You could also do the twist tie first if you prefer that, then wrap. It's really preference up to you. The twist tie just helps for the extra stability. So, all right, so I've got, actually yeah, this looks pretty good. So you can see here, I've got two sets of the bundles up, and you can kind of see the contrast that it makes, the brown and then the green, which is really nice. So to make your life easier too, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to add your ryegrass or your bunny tails, pine cones, all while you're adding the magnolia leaves, so that at the end you're not stuck trying to kind of go through all of the leaves to tuck in the ryegrass. And it seems like a good idea to wait so that way you can better position them, but if you leave a few extra at the end and you see holes at the end, you can always just go in and fill in where you need to. But you can go ahead and trim your ryegrass down. So we'll trim might even go a little bit more than that. And so a good rule of thumb for this, as you place your other ornamentals, I would say pretty much plan to put one with each set of leaves, with each bundle. So that way when you get around, each bundle has either a piece of ryegrass, a pine cone, or a bunny tail, and it'll be evenly distributed throughout the wreath. So if I were to tuck this here, yeah, I'll go even a little bit shorter. And you'll want to be gentle, especially with the ryegrass and the bunny tails, because sometimes the wire will just easily chop through the stem, so just be careful about that as you're moving along. And sometimes if you leave it a little bit longer, you can always come back and trim the end off at the back. All right, so go ahead and add some of this. And for these, you can play around. Like these can go, you know, like I am putting all the magnolias here on this second to outside piece of the frame, but maybe you want it a little bit closer, or you want these a little bit more out, so you can play with your placement of that. I'm gonna put it on the second to inside part of the frame. It'll help you too if you want to do the twist tie method first while it's up and facing, and then wrap, so that way you're not having to move the wreath around too much. Again, the same thing here. You can add a dab of glue if you wish. Okay, so this is what I mean, you know, like a little piece of the ryegrass came off, so just be gentle as you're attaching, and you can start to see how it's forming here. So just stack them one on top of the other, and in between this one I would have put, you know, a pine cone or one of the bunny tails, and you can keep doing that as you layer throughout the wreath. And keep playing with your leaves too. If you're not happy with, you know, the shape of them, you know, make sure to fan them out, because the wire will want to sometimes push them one way or the other. All right, so the next aspect I'm going to show you is what to do with the pine cones. I have a few set up here. You can see this is floral wire, not string. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your floral wire, cut it pretty long. I mean, it doesn't need to be this long, but maybe I would say somewhere around 8-10 inches is good. And you can go ahead and I'm going to do a little demo of it. Take one of your pine cones, you're going to take the floral wire, and you're going to insert the floral wire into the base of the pine cone. Some are easier than others to do this, so just be gentle, take your time. Try to get it about, I would say, 1 inch in at least if you can. Just gently wiggle it, see where it will move in. Sorry, I have lots of mosquitoes out here bugging me today. Okay. Alright, that's probably about as good as I'm going to get it for this one. So what I would do then is I would take my glue gun, and then you're going to put a little dab right at that base of where you put the floral wire. And that's how you're going to keep the pine cones intact. So that's what I have here. This one and this guy here. So same thing. I mean, once you get another set of leaves in there, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this one down because it's a little too much wire. And what's great about these is you're gonna be able to easily move them within the wreath because they're in the floral wire. This one, go ahead and attach here. And because it is green, it sort of disguises within the leaves. So you might want to keep that in mind when you're building it out, that if you don't like seeing some of the green, to put the pine cones with your green leaves versus the brown leaves. Okay, so this is just a little example of what it looks like with the pine cone, the ryegrass, but I would just keep going ahead and stacking around your wreath and adding more of the bunny tails, the pine cones, and the ryegrass, and it's gonna look beautiful. So I think in terms of everything that we have here, with the exception of the bunny tails, you'll apply those pretty much the same way you did with the ryegrass, but just remember these are on a very thin stem, so just be gentle with them so that you don't tear them up. And what I liked to do with those is I tended to fan them out towards the outside of the wreath. I liked that, but it's really up to you how you like to lay it out. And I won't sit here for about an hour and a half showing you the entire wreath, just to save you some time, and that way you can get to work and go ahead and build your wreath. But feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Definitely let me know, and I'm going to show you the end product again as well. So thank you so much, and hope you enjoy.